From the Southern Bureau of RT America in beautiful downtown Miami, hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez. Happy Thursday. I want to begin tonight by showing you some video of something that happened. This is back in September of 2016. So Native Americans who did not want a pipeline going through their land for fear that it would pollute the Missouri River were attacked by private, not police, private security guards with dogs. Watch this.
I need water,
Look at me!
Then, a month later, in late October, a similar incident occurred when police joined the private security guards. This time, they arrived by helicopter, and they conducted mass arrests of the protesters who said that they were simply protecting the land that they thought was granted to them. Watch.
We're going to put out the fire, but you have to move to the south. There's a high... You have to get off the pickup and move to the...
They'll know when their families get hurt that they fought for the wrong thing.
Now let me show you a graphic which explains this pipeline. It was projected to run from North Dakota to southern Illinois. It crosses beneath the Missouri and the Mississippi rivers and through two, and this is important. So this pipeline is going to run through two Indian reservations. Well, as you might imagine, Native Americans warn that it's going to threaten the region's clean water and that it's going to desecrate ancient Indian burial grounds, which are important to them. That is what led to the protest. That's what led to the attack. So the Obama administration at the time, they step in and they say, look, all right, so let's agree to do an environmental assessment before we move any further. And that's what was going on. But then the Trump administration comes in and they quash every bit of that, choosing instead to back the oil companies, and even to go as far as making it illegal for anyone to protest the pipeline. Well, since Mr. Trump was inaugurated, get this, 17 states have actually introduced laws that create new penalties that punish anybody who is a pipeline protester, not allowed to protest a pipeline. So tonight, obviously, I mean, we're going to examine the constitutionality, if not the fairness, of those laws and what pushback protesters plan against the measures and their very powerful and wealthy opponents. This is The News with Rick Sanchez, where we believe it is time to do news again. We're going to begin with what appears to really be a direct assault on the First Amendment of our Bill of Rights, the right to peaceably assemble. Unfortunately, our history is replete with examples of workers and others being trampled by private corporations who would hire private security forces to beat the crap out of protesters as police and government officials often just look the other way. You want to see this for yourself? Google it. Just Google Pinkertons one time when you're bored, and you'll be surprised by what you see and the things that have gone on. Anyway, this time, it appears to go beyond just opposing protesters or sending in security forces. See, what may be taking place now are laws that are being enacted that appear to violate the letter and the spirit of what we think or thought were guaranteed as citizens. The right to protest, the right to say, no, you can't do that here. Joining us now is News with Rick Sanchez special correspondent Michelle Greenstein, who has been looking into this for us. You know, as an American, as a reporter, as a member of the media, I think this is really important. If 17 states are passing a law that says you can't hold a protest, what the hell is next?
Right. I mean, whether or not you agree with this particular situation, with what the fossil fuel industry is doing to the earth, this does have huge First Amendment implications. Now, like you said, in the past couple of years, 17 states have created these laws that create penalties for protesters. And of course, some could say discourage future people from protesting. Arizona's Senate voted to allow police to arrest anyone involved in a protest and actually seize their assets. North Carolina tried to make it a crime to heckle lawmakers. And Portland, Oregon organizers are now considered domestic terrorists for the crime of protesting police murder of black men. But the legislation I want to hone in on started in Oklahoma, where in 2017, the governor signed a piece of legislation to make it a felony to trespass on any property that's considered critical infrastructure. So opponents of this law actually say that this is not about national security. It's meant to deter pipeline protests, since, of course, the energy sector is deemed critical infrastructure by the DHS. Now, thanks to the American Legislative Exchange Council, which many may say is just a gaggle of corporate lobbyists who actually probably have more of a voice in your state representatives' vote than you do, 5 states have enacted some version of this law, and that includes Louisiana, which is where we're seeing our first lawsuit. Louisiana introduced this law during the construction of the Bayou Bridge pipeline, which ironically has the same parent company as that of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Now, pipeline protesters were arrested and charged under this new law about a week after it went into effect. But yesterday, the Center for Constitutional Rights filed a lawsuit calling this new law unconstitutional and saying that it just intends to punish the opposition to any pipeline project. It's also, interestingly enough, based on the fact that the pipeline company didn't even negotiate for permission from the landowners or even obtain eminent domain before starting to build that pipeline. But the landowners did actually give the anti-pipeline protesters permission to go on their land. They were still charged with trespassing felonies. Now, we're also seeing a lawsuit in South Dakota.
Let me just stop you for just a moment. You get passionate when you tell all these stories.
I just get nervous with my time segment.
So here's what you just said, is that the government is holding in their dicta, their legal dicta, that these folks are essentially interrupting or possibly violating important U.S. infrastructure.
Right.
In most of these cases, they're coming in and protesting before the pipeline's even in. So how can you protest? How can you damage infrastructure that's not even in the ground yet?
In some cases, yet. And the real question is whether these state laws are going to be deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, because we're dealing with the right to assemble, the right to express yourself. It's a First Amendment question. Now, the Supreme Court, interestingly enough, has not decided a case explicitly on free assembly grounds in over 30 years. So if it gets to the Supreme Court, that would be a huge deal, and we'll have to see how that goes.
Well, you would certainly think that the Supreme Court would follow what I and you and everybody who's watching this newscast have read that's written in the Bill of Rights of our Constitution, right? And if they don't, then what the hell did we write that thing for?
One can
Michelle,
only hope.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah. I'm Rick Sanchez. You found us on YouTube, and that's awesome. But you know what? I'm also live every night at 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern on DirecTV and Dish and cable and satellite, the RT app, and Pluto TV. I'll see you there.